Welcome to the GAVIN Fi Podcast, created and hosted by the GAVIN Financial Services PR team. GAVIN is a national brand communications agency that specializes in public relations and digital marketing for financial services clients. Each episode will collaborate with industry leaders, media professionals, and other interesting voices with unique perspectives to explore the crossroads between public relations and financial services. I'm Sophie Hannikin.
And I'm Jay Scott.
And on today's episode of the GAVIN Fi Podcast, we're joined by Sean Maher, principal at Valley Forge Financial Group. Thanks for joining us, Sean.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be on today.
Great. We're excited to have you. Can you share a little bit about your role at Valley Forge?
Sure. I'm a principal, one of the owners of Valley Forge Financial Group. Been with the firm for 29 years, and my focus for the first 28 has been wealth transfer and estate planning work with clients, but now I'm primarily running our family office services team.
That's exciting. So at GAVIN, we know that there's a lot of factors that go into the unique needs of our clients, and I'm sure that the same can be said for you and your work with your clients. So we're really excited to jump in to today's topics.
Great.
So for business owners, it can be really easy to overlook some of the important personal matters when planning for the future. What do you see that's commonly disregarded or neglected by clients in this process?
You know, the busiest business owners are neglecting a lot of it. In fact, maybe sometimes all of it. I got a call this Tuesday, a couple of days ago, with a very unfortunate situation. Business owner, very small company, but they were doing a couple $1 million in revenue with 3 employees. And the business founder died suddenly. He had been in the company for 30 years. He had no legal documents set up. I spoke to his son, who was clearly traumatized, but his son's biggest concern 2 weeks after his dad suddenly passed is, what do I do with this company? What's it worth? Do I sell it? Do I keep it? Do I try to run it myself? So the busiest company owners are running hard every day and just unfortunately not focused on estate planning and some of the basic things they need to take care of.
What are some of the consequences of doing that, though? I mean, I feel like folks that have been in business for a few years that, they're starting to enter a next stage that they, should be thinking about that stuff, not delaying. Like what causes folks to, you think, neglect some of those decisions? And as they get to that next stage, what kind of repercussions does it have generally?
Right. That's a great question. There's always a reason not to do it. First of all, I think people hate talking about their mortality and dying. One of my clients used to joke with me, okay, we've been talking for 10 minutes and you haven't killed me yet. Because I usually say, well, if husband dies first, if wife dies first, but I would say people just generally don't like talking about the topic. They'd rather talk about, what's the next deal that's in front of me? What's the next building I can buy or the next acquisition I can make? And then, the consequences, unfortunately, the worst case, like I just described, but, people just keep putting it off. Maybe the first time in someone's life they ought to be thinking about this is when they get married, when they have children, when their children hit adulthood. These are all points in time to address it. But unfortunately, people keep procrastinating and putting it off.
Is it like a fear that they think they're going to do it wrong, or that they can only do it once, that they don't want, that they can't go back and like revise? Is that part of the issue with a lot of the folks that you work with, that they just think if we set it up, we can't touch it again? Or is it something else that they just feel like, I'm going to mess something up that's going to impact something later? I'm going to make the wrong decision in my 20s. It's going to impact me in my 50s.
Yeah, that's a great observation, Jay. I mean, I think a lot of people, you've heard the phrase, don't let perfection get in the way of progress. And I think you're spot on there. People feel like it needs to be perfect, and all the trustees and guardians and executors that they name have to be the exact right people. But to your point, a will and anything that's not irrevocable can be changed at any point. And so, yeah, the time to do this type of planning and get your legal house in order is now. And so, it's never too early to do it, and it can always be changed, to your point.
You touched a little bit on key moments in time that people should recognize that it's time to make changes. What would you say are some key signs that your clients may need to adjust their plan, and how do you go about addressing this?
Again, another client story. It's amazing knowing that we were going to talk today. I thought, wow, this is something I have to share with you guys. Also this week, coincidentally, got a call from a client. I've been chasing to get his wills and legal documents in place for over 15 years. And again, it was sort of like, well, I might be getting a divorce. Okay, the divorce happens. Well, my youngest daughter's about to go off to college. Still didn't do it. The reason I got the call was he passed out on the tennis court and went in and got tests. Now he needs surgery. Guess what? He's focused on it. And unfortunately, that's all too common. It's either people leaving on a long trip or unfortunately a health setback that really puts people, it gets their focus on this. But sometimes by then it's too late. But, those key life events, to your question, Sophie, my middle son is getting married this summer. He needs a will. Without a will, the state of his residence will determine where his assets will go when he dies, except in those cases where there's a specific beneficiary designations. When someone gets married, when they have children, starting a business, selling a business, these are all life events that are wonderful events, but I'm that guy. I'm that Jiminy Cricket on the shoulder saying, have you addressed your will?
Well, on the other hand, though, too, like if it's not a major life event, what are some signs that clients should stick with their plan? There's other people who probably feel like they're maybe the minority group that they want to change things all the time. They see something going on in the world. They see a change in, something that's, in their local regional market or their industry. And they feel like they have to make decisions all the time and make tweaks to their plan every year. But that's not always a great idea either, is it?
No, I would agree with that. And, people can become obsessive about it. I've definitely noticed a pattern as people age and they start thinking about legacy a lot more in their 60s, 70s, 80s. That's when they're really focused on every minute detail, which is fine. And we're happy to help them. But the best service we can bring business owners as planners and estate planning professionals is to make it easy for them. So we do something I'm sure many firms do, which is to diagram everything in a picture. So rather than reading a 50-page will, we show it on a one-page diagram to say, here's where your assets are today. If you died tomorrow, here's how the assets would flow. And that becomes a great decision point and a great vehicle for strategizing so that it's not a 3-hour discussion. In 30 minutes, we can really take a look at the key elements and determine if any changes are needed.
Okay. You recently wrote a book. Obviously, the greatest gift is the book that came out, and you're kind of wondering, what inspired that? Could you talk a little bit about some of these client stories or just your experience over the course of your career? What impacted your decision to kind of tackle a book now at this stage?
Well, thank you. And the book is called The Greatest Gift, the 9 Principles for Transferring Your Legacy Along with Your Wealth. And that subtitle is really important. I had a bit of a debate with our editor. I wanted it to be the 9 Principles for Transferring Your Legacy, not just your wealth. And that gives you a little bit of a hint. This is like late 2010, 2012 timeframe. We had 2 client situations that hit me really hard. In both cases, the matriarch and patriarch died. And unfortunately, even though we did tax planning, I say we, Valley Forge was certainly involved, but their attorneys, accountants, all the professional team around them did tax planning, creditor protection planning. And lo and behold, after both sets of parents died, the kids were fighting like crazy. And I just it really hit me hard personally. I'm thinking, how could this have happened? What did we miss? And so Jill is a mental health counselor, my wife and co-author. Of course, she said, you probably ought to write this down a little bit as part of my therapy. And that became the genesis for the book. She knew, I think, early on that it really, the cause of this was we just didn't focus on the relationships. We focused everything on tax and the money, but not on the family relationships. And so the book is about family relationships. We outline the 9 principles, share a pretty heartbreaking story in each chapter, but then we counterbalance that with, here are some families that have done it right. And the common thread, again, will be connection and relationships, and really being deliberate about that, as deliberate about relationships as you are with tax planning.
When you're thinking about the principles that you've outlined in your book, how do you navigate your day-to-day work? Where does that come into play for you when you're working with all your clients on a day-to-day basis?
And I'll say this for your listeners, the process of writing the book really gave two very important things to me, and it's related to your question. It gave me clarity and it gave me conviction. And, writing a book is not easy. And that's why there are so many ghostwriters out there that are saying, I'll write a book for you and you can put your name on it. I would advise people against that, because, the 3 years it took to put this together really provided the clarity and the conviction that I can bring it to work and I can use it in practice. One of the chapter 2 is share your story. And it talks about the importance of families telling how the wealth was created and sharing it through the generations, not preaching, but sharing it in a way that everyone can understand and learn from those lessons. So that's been one that I've been incorporating in a lot of conversations, and just challenging patriarchs and matriarchs, business owners, business founders. Let's figure out a way to share your story with your family.
Does it influence you a little bit too when you look at it now and the book's out, you've gone through this process, like as a business owner, some of the next steps you might take with Valley Forge, or, within your own family dynamic of how you have those conversations with your children? Does it have an influence in that way? Do you think future generations can learn from that to have conversations a little sooner?
Absolutely. Jay, one thing that I've observed too over the almost 30 years of doing this is our generation is much more comfortable talking about these topics. We know therapy, for one thing, is much more accepted than, let's say, the prior generation. Similarly with money, and getting out ahead of it and being deliberate about talking about money and money issues is definitely something that we are better at than our parents. And so we have personally started to include our 3 children in our conversations, and really try to use the principles of the book to make sure that we're stopping the potential for conflict down the road.
That's great to hear, Sean. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. How can our listeners get in touch with you? How can they access your book?
Thank you. That's kind of you to ask. So we do have a direct website called thegreatestgiftbook.com. And for any Gavin Fi listeners that want to buy the book, we've got a great deal for you, free shipping. So if you just put Gavin Fi in the coupon code, we'll get you a copy with free shipping. I should say all the proceeds of the book are going to mental health charities. So, you're helping people by buying the book. But on the website, there's a contact us, the link, so people could certainly get in touch with me that way. The book's also available in any major bookstore. It came out earlier this year, so online retailers and bookstores have the book today.
Thank you so much. That's awesome that you have that amazing deal for our listeners. So thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you for having me today. It's fun chatting about it.
Yeah. Thanks, Sean.
That was a great conversation that we had with Sean. I really enjoyed the touch point that he made about making it easy for his clients. I think that we also incorporate that element and try to make it as easy as possible for our clients in determining their strategy and providing guidance to accomplish all of the needs that they have.
Yeah, I think a lot of what I heard, he has 9 principles in the book. He mentioned number 2, which is the one that stood out to me, kind of that storytelling aspect. We do it in our work, and obviously he does it in his own way as an estate planner and someone who's helping families and business owners with their financial picture. I think, we're communications professionals, but we talk to a lot of clients, and they have a fear of doing something wrong. They have a fear of overlooking some key details that can help us, or maybe help them. Something that might hurt the brand, maybe help the brand. Like there's always those ongoing conversations that they have internally, They don't always share with us. Then when we do,
Yeah.
There's a lot of back and forth, but at the end of the day, I think we're trying to get them to be, open with us and trust us to take their brand to the next level. And I think that's a lot of what Sean's trying to do. He's trying to help them understand it's okay to make changes. It's okay, that you didn't get to this plan, 15 years ago. Let's address it now so that it does have a lasting effect on your legacy or your family's business.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I just love the aspect of it being totally unique for each person and each client. So I think that's also where we kind of relate a little bit there. Everybody has a different story to tell, and it's exciting to get to navigate the ways that we can bring those stories to life.
Yeah. I mean, I think we all have that little bit of fear. Hey, did I do this the way it was supposed to be done? Is this going to have the impact that I intended it to have? And we measure results. Certainly, financial professionals do. So there's a lot of unique stories that we like to kind of pull together, and I think that was a really good conversation to bring to our listeners.
Yeah, I totally agree. Thanks for listening to the GAVIN Fi Podcast, everyone. Be sure to sign up for our quarterly GAVIN Fi newsletter at evolving-influence.com/GAVIN-Fi for more insights, curated stories, and agency resources to help you explore the latest marketing strategies and industry trends. For more episodes of the GAVIN Fi Podcast, visit our YouTube channel, Gavin Advertising York. And to get in touch with us, email us at gavinfi@gavinadv.com.